So hopefully you can all get access to it. And it just means if you want to go back over any of the content, you've got it as a resource as well. So let's make a start, and I'll keep an eye on the waiting room. If anybody else joins us, I'll let them in because we often have people running a couple of minutes late. But thank you for investing your Friday lunchtime. Really great to see you. And hopefully you'll get some practical, useful tips that you can take away to improve your sales approach as you go forward from today. Let's kind of make a start with thinking about your thinking. So a lot of what we do in our professional lives is about considering the approach we take. So I'll just invite you today as we go through the webinar, just to think about, as we talk about some of the challenges, as we talk about some of the opportunities and the ways in which we address those challenges, just give you a chance to think about what does that mean for you? What changes might you need to make? And often we'll find that you might know things, but it's being able to do something with that knowledge. So knowledge in itself is not power. It's knowledge plus action equals power. So we just make sure that we kind of keep that on your radar through today's session. We have an hour together. We will finish by 2. What we're going to cover in the next hour are the top 3 challenges that our clients keep telling us are coming up over and over again. We do that through kind of research data, and we've got a scorecard that I'm going to share with you today that you can take if you'd like to start your own kind of assessment of where you are in your sales process and your sales approach. How we address those key challenges. We'll talk about a couple of models that we use in our business that are really useful. A planning model that helps you to think about how you approach your market, how you approach key customers, and then the Inspire sales process, which really is the foundation of the work that we do and the foundation of the work our clients do to employ kind of the best sales approach that they can take. And then at the end, there's a program offer, which I think you may already be aware of, but I'll just walk you through what that looks like. And then we've got a chance for a bit of Q&A at the end as well. Okay, so for those of you who don't perhaps haven't had the chance to kind of spend any time with me before, just a bit of my background. So I've been in sales leadership, business management, business leadership, and coaching for around 30 years now. So it's quite a long track record. And one of the things that we do, from my previous corporate career, we did a lot of work on, structure, best practice, development, and prioritizing, the focus on us getting better, so that when we get better, the results improve, performance improves, then results. And it's such an obvious thing to think about, but a lot of companies miss it, and especially during difficult periods of time, they stop investing in their own development. And actually, it's the one thing that really makes the difference. So when we start working with organizations and teams, we do some assessments, which I'll talk about our scorecard today, do some assessments. What we find is that there's an inconsistency. Sometimes there's a little bit of a kind of negativity sets in, and that's not intentional, but sometimes people get a bit worn down, especially in sales. Sales is such a kind of continuous process. You're never off when you're in sales, and then of course every month or every quarter, every year, you press the reset buttons, you start again. So it's like it can be quite challenging. And what we do is try and put in place structure that allows our clients, and hopefully you'll get some of this today, to start to think about, right, how do we re-engage ourselves? How do we start to think about the way that we deliver our results so that we get a more consistent approach to it, improve performance, and then of course growth starts to happen as a byproduct of that. So that's what we try and do with clients as part of our programs. We've been delighted as a team to be recognized with some business awards over the last kind of 5 to 10 years as well, which has been great. And the models that we use tend to be quite well documented. So we use the Inspire, Influence, Sell book, and we use that as our guideline for really helping to develop what is a structured program that we know is going to deliver time and time again. And that became an Amazon bestseller a couple of years ago. So if you haven't had a copy of that book, do let me know. I'll certainly send you a digital copy, and if we get a chance to meet, I'll certainly let you have a paperback copy as well. And we work with lots of different businesses over the last 4 or 5 years. We're now at about 3,500 businesses or business and sales professionals using the models and seeing the results, which is great. And we got lots of data on the improvements that it makes for those businesses. So we have this question that we ask: what's your biggest challenge in the sales process? And we kind of ask customers this on a regular basis. And these are the themes that come up over and over again in this order. So Getting customers to engage in the first instance is like the number one hurdle that people face. That kind of, how do you create a compelling message? Second is then about, and it's interesting because these are linked, struggling to get customers to meet you starts to erode your confidence, right? So then confidence and motivation starts to be impacted. And then interestingly, at the tail end of the sales process, once you've got a customer engaged, then one of the other challenges is about how you maintain client momentum. How do you make sure that you keep that momentum and enthusiasm and engagement high with customers that you're already in a process with? And that's another interesting challenge that we'll talk about. And then coming in behind that, a kind of regular theme. One was about managing remote selling. And interestingly, during the pandemic, that was number one, but it's slipped back down now. So it's number 4 in our list. And questioning and listening is number 5. And that sounds like it should be straightforward. But when there's a lot going on in your mind and you've got pressure to make sales, it's interesting. You tend to do less questioning and listening and more pitching. And that becomes a problem for you and your customers without you realizing it. We've all been there, right? We've all been there. Sometimes I still go back there just for a bit of nostalgia. Not intentional. Sometimes it just happens, right? And then there's other challenges, but this is the percentage in which those challenges come up. So because we're a small group, I'd be interested in your kind of top challenge that you face with selling. So I'd love to hear, Charlie, I don't know if there's one thing that's predominant for you in your business that you've found.
I think it's trying to find the right people with my business development, is getting actually into a meeting with somebody who's a decision maker and knowing what person that is. Okay.
In the early stages, so you might be in the right business, it's the identification
of the
in the business.
Correct.
Okay. So you'll end up having a meeting with someone, and then what happens at the end of it? They'll go, well, I can't make a decision on this.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you need to reschedule and redo the whole thing again, but with somebody who can make that decision, I suppose.
Yeah. So qualifying your prospect as early as possible. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Emma, how about you?
Well, probably a couple, but one thing that probably does spring to mind at the moment is one of the top challenges that I face is when I'm engaging with a customer and we've sent over proposals, the proposals are then just used with our competitors for them to price match, to bring down where we're going in to say that we're going to save them money on their admin fees. Then they just go back to their current provider and say, well, Emma's offered me this, are you going to match it? What are you going to do? And lately, 9 times out of 10, the competition have aggressively said, yeah, whatever she said, I'll match it.
Right. So okay. So that's interesting. So they're using your pricing as a bargaining chip or bargaining tool with their existing supplier, and then they're like, right, okay, now we don't need to move.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Thanks, Emma. I've definitely got some tips for you on that. So we'll talk about that in a bit as well. Brilliant, thank you. Teresa, how about you?
Yeah, the same thing. When you're sort of face to face or on the phone, a bit like Charlie really, is actually getting to speak to the person who makes the decisions. We know through telephone sales that it might take 5, 6, 7, 8 attempts to get to the person that you need to speak to. And that's the real challenge, and it's just the persistence in that, and kind of keeping the confidence up to carry on, to just keep plugging away at it to get to that right person. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the challenge about finding the right person is also a challenge that then starts to affect your motivation and your own. And it's almost self-doubt, right? It creeps in, doesn't it? God, can I get to the right, but will I ever get this opportunity closed? Where are we going next with it? All that stuff that starts to rumble around in your mind without you even realizing it. It's on autopilot, isn't it? Yeah. And then sometimes you can sort of think, well, you're not going to get the better of me. You will speak to me. And it's just yeah. And eventually you get there, but it's just like, oh, right, they must be getting fed up of me here. And right, it's Teresa from Focus for Growth and Yeah, but persistence pays off 9 times out of 10. But yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's that, and thank you, Teresa, that's really useful. But there's that, it's very often in our own minds what it is that we're having this conversation about. Oh, well, what if they think this? What if they think that?
And I, one of the things that, I mean, like today's webinar, right, for example, I run a lot of these webinars, and in my head, I could be thinking, God, they've all heard this before, right? And you have that reset for yourself that says, this could be the first time, this is likely the first time they've heard this. So act as if it's the first time. It's really important. It's a really important reset for yourself, because if you take any baggage into the conversation, that affects your performance. And I'm while I'm talking to you, I'm talking to me, because we all have this need to continually become aware, continually improve and refine the approach. So as we go through today's session, we'll get answers to Charlie, you're identifying key decision makers, how we go through that as a structural process. Emma will talk about how we address that situation where you've presented a price or a proposal to a customer and they use it as a bargaining chip. How do we overcome that? Both of those challenges, and then Teresa's is about that continual development of sales opportunities and finding the right people. A lot of your challenges have a common theme, which is about asking good questions of the customer at the right time and being able to have a really solid value proposition that helps them to recognize what it is you bring. And that there's a couple of things in there that are really important: the value that you bring, and then the questions that you ask to make sure that you have either the right person or you're arming your customer to start to think about the things that are going to happen in advance. I'll talk about that as we go through it. Okay, good. Thank you for sharing those with us. That's really useful. So let's talk about these three predominant challenges, which kind of link to some of yours. There's a bit of a trap we fall into if we don't get to know the problem, kind of almost up close and personal. We can fall into the trap of repeating it. We can kind of never really fix it. Understanding the problem is part of how we fix it. So I'll talk you through the three problems and what we find with customers, and this is feedback directly from the work that we do with their clients in Focus for Growth. So number one is getting the customer to meet me, as we said. Number two is about sales confidence and motivation. Number three is this, sometimes we're unable to maintain client momentum. It's similar to Emma's challenge, but slightly different. So number one is about getting customers to meet. We've found this is interesting. If you struggle with engaging clients, it's normally the meaningful value-led messaging that's missing. So how do we create much more meaningful value-led messaging? I've got a technique for this as we go through the second half of the webinar. And what happens inadvertently is we start pitching the business, pitching the product that we offer, and then pitching ourselves. And what happens is customers kind of tune out or don't respond, or you find yourself getting ghosted because they don't want to hear about your business or your product or you or me, right? They want to hear about something that's relevant to them, and we'll talk about how we craft a message like that. So then what happens is, because we become unsure if that's working or not, we just do more of the same thing, and it's effectively ineffective pitching. So we have to then kind of go, rather than keep repeating the cycle and thinking, throwing more at it, hoping something will stick, we have to press the pause button, go back, reset, change the message, and then go with something different. And that's the key. And I'll talk about how we do that shortly. And this is an obvious statement, but if someone says they're too busy to see us, then it's a result of the perceived value of seeing us, right? It's their perception of value. That's why we have to work on the value proposition and the value statements, which we'll talk about. I said how number one links to number two. If you find yourself in this situation where you're kind of over and over again getting less and less engagement from customers, you're doing more but not really seeing an increase in results or responses, then it can start to affect your motivation. And what we find is that rejection really hurts, right? And it's not physically hurts, it psychologically hurts. And what we realize is that psychologically, if you look at the brain has a hard time distinguishing between what's real and what's imagined. It just has a really hard time distinguishing one from the other. It creates the same feelings in rejection as it does in physical pain. It's really interesting. But we have this psychological need to be recognized and accepted in the world. And if you think about sales, right, a really good close rate in sales is somewhere between 25 and 33%. You'd say that's a really solid close rate, 1 in 4 or 1 in 3 customers closing. Well, by default, that means you're being rejected 2 out of 3 or 3 out of 4 times. So when you think about it like that, you think, no wonder it hurts, right? No wonder sales is such a difficult role. But actually, sometimes recognizing that that is part of it, it can be really liberating for you. You go, actually, it's okay, right? We're going through a process. We know that 3 out of 4 or 2 out of 3 is going to say no. It's just about finding the 1 out of 3 or 2 out of, or 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 4. Does that make sense? So it starts to help you build the resilience. Really what we have to start to do is develop this mindset. And when sales teams lose confidence and motivation, they haven't developed the mindset to keep evolving the approach. Remember I said, don't keep doing the same thing if it doesn't work. Pause, go back, evolve the approach, or persevere for longer, recognizing that actually it's just a process and we're going through, what is a series of steps that delivers a result, or reinterpreting rejection. As Teresa said at the start, right? They will say yes. It's just a matter of time, right? So we reinterpret rejection. And sometimes that reinterpreting of rejection is, every time I get rejected, actually, there's an opportunity for me to learn how to refine and craft the message more impactfully, right? So that just that reimagining of what it means to you personally is really important. But if you haven't learned to do that, then you become uncertain, insecure, and I don't know if you found yourself, you either become hesitant, and I'll confess, many times I'll be standing there with my phone, ready to call and go, I have to take a sharp in, take a breath, and press the dial button, right? Because there are certain people that when you're calling them, you're like, right, I've got to be on my A game, because if I'm not on my A game, this is not going to go anywhere. So that whole hesitation, avoiding the hesitation, we find with sales teams, especially larger sales teams, where they'll actually start to pull back from sales activities, and they quite legitimately fill their time with non-sales activities. But when you get to the root cause of it, it's not because they're busy doing that, it's because it's a safer alternative than getting rejected. And they kind of know it, but they're not admitting it to themselves. So the first step is admit it to yourself, and then you can change it. So confidence and motivation is really important to work on. And very often, just working harder, just pushing harder doesn't work. Actually, it can have a counter effect where it makes you even more hesitant, even more kind of disengaged. And that's probably the word, disengaged. You start to feel disengaged with the work. Challenge. I know it sounds a bit depressing at this point, but we are going to talk about some fixing, I promise. So then the client momentum piece is really interesting. So even when we can get clients engaged, if in that process of the meeting, the discussion, if we don't create enough value for customers, and when I say create enough value, what I mean is really understand what they're looking for, help them to understand why that should be something they really pursue and they choose you to pursue it with, right? And the customer says, you know what, this is the right fit. I feel the right fit. You've understood what I need. You've explained how you can help me. It's a compelling proposition. I'm motivated to act because of the way we've discussed it. And now I'm ready to commit, right? If the customer doesn't think that, and you sense they don't think that, you're very likely to say to them, I'll let you think about it. When you say, I'll let you think about it, you might as well have said, thanks, never see you again. Right? Because very often that's what happens. The customer just tunes out, and anytime you follow up with them, they go, oh no, I haven't had the chance to look at it, or we've got to make sure that we feel confident to gain commitment and close business every time, or not necessarily close business every time, but make progress every time. So we move the customer along the journey every single time. And what happens instead is that we overtalk, we tend to pitch. If we don't understand the customer, they don't see us as relevant. And if we're not connecting the dots with the customer and creating solutions to their problems, then they're going to think, well, yeah, it was an interesting hour with Justin, or however long, but thanks, I'll think about it, and then you don't get a chance to move forward. And we have to remember that in a lot of these situations, when we ask for commitment or when we're trying to gain commitment from somebody, we can't push it on them, we have to pull it from them. Okay, commitment is pulled, it's not pushed. I learned this lesson twice in my career, and it really sticks with me. And when I say pulled, I mean questioning people, drawing information, getting them to commit to themselves. And we'll talk about how we do that. Consequence of all this stuff is that we become anxious. Motivation starts to become at risk. We might, if you're in sales management positions, and I don't think you are, but having led lots of different sales teams, when this sets in, you can start to get resistance, defensiveness, and it's perfectly understandable. I've experienced it myself, not just as a sales leader, but as a salesperson. And then you get more pressure applied, because the focus then is on results, pipeline, all the lagging metrics, right? All the stuff that you can't change because you are where you are. And actually, we have to get back to what are the things we can change, what are the performance improvements we can make to improve, people's sense of confidence, self-esteem, and then things work through if you make those early investments. But lots of consequences for businesses around what this means for sales teams. So what do we do about it? One of the big things we do about it is invest in ourselves, right? Whatever that looks like for you, we invest in ourselves. And I love this quote. It's very often misquoted as being Richard Branson, but I think it's just like a general quote. CFO asks the CEO, what happens if we invest in developing our people and they leave us? CEO says, what happens if we don't and they stay? So you can see the dilemma, and it's true, isn't it? We should see that investment in our people as an investment in our own organization as well. And if you're in a sales role, then you should see that as an investment in yourself. This is interesting. Lots of research data on this. This is the number that keeps coming up. 55% of sales professionals that have never been trained to sell. So they know the business, they know the product, they know the market, they know the customer, but they've never been trained to sell. How do I sell this product to a customer in this marketplace without just winging it, right? And that's so more than half of people in professional roles haven't been taught, and it's fascinating. So let me talk you through a slide that's really useful as an orientation to what we do and how we align it with the customer. So the customer journey and how the sales process fits. So you all have seen the original sales funnel that looks like that, and sales opportunities draw down through the funnel. That makes an inherent assumption that the gravity works with us to pull the customer down through the funnel, and it doesn't, right? In the sales process, we're the ones that have to draw the customer up through the funnel. So we start by reversing the funnel and making the customer journey bottom to top. So we recognize the work to move it is ours, not gravity's. And the customer starts their journey unaware, so probably unaware that there's an opportunity to make savings, get a better experience, seek higher value, get better exposure, build or grow their business, whatever it is that you do. They're unaware in the first instance. And our job is to do the right preparation. I'll talk about how shortly. Do the right preparation so that we can put into place a message that resonates with the customer. And when the message resonates with the customer, they start their journey. They move from unaware to attentive. So attentive is the first step. And when the customer's attentive, our job at that stage, as well as to connect and build rapport and establish a relationship, is to share an insight with them. So to share some data or market information that gets the customer to think differently. So you've got their attention. Now you need to help them to think differently, to reframe their current situation. And when you do that effectively, the customer moves from attention to interest. And now when a customer's interested, this is the big mistake I've made before I realized how to sell effectively. When the customer's interested, most people start to pitch. They mistake interest for a customer who's ready to buy. And instead, what we should do is ask about the customer's needs. When someone's interested, when they say, oh yeah, tell me more about that, Justin, instead of going into the full sales pitch, I should say, I will tell you more, but before I do, is it okay if I ask you a few questions about your business? And the customer will always say yes, right? Every single time. Yes, absolutely. And then we ask them about their business. We use lots of different questions that think about their motivation, their desires, their wants, their needs. And after we've asked those questions, listened carefully, paraphrased, summarized, and gone back to them, they will be in a state of desire, because having talked about their problems, they've sold themselves through the next step of their own journey, right? No one else can do it for them. They have to do it for themselves. So the customer's in a state of desire, and that's when we can say, okay, would it be okay if I share with you how I think we could help? The customer says yes, and then you start to talk about a solution, right? Here's how it works. Here's what other customers say. Here's what it does, why that's advantageous to you, and here's the benefit you get from it, and here's the need you told me how that it links up to, right? And so we structure the conversation at this point in a way that really moves the customer from desire to want to take action. And it's that movement from desire to action. You'll sense it in the right conversation with the right customer when you follow the process. Then we can make a proposal. Okay, now let's talk about what a proposal looks like. And we'll circle back on this one, Emma, to deal with that issue of the customer saying, yes, but I've now used it as a negotiating stick, right? We'll handle that in a moment. But when the customer's ready to take action, we make a proposal, then they will become a customer. But they'll only become a customer if we create some urgency and immediacy. So if we say, I'll leave it with you, or just have a think about it, they never make that step from wanting to take action to becoming a customer. So we have to create some urgency at the end, and that's what we do through this penultimate stage in our process. And really what we're looking for are customers that become loyal, want to deal with us, think less about price, and really focus on the relationship and partnership with us. And we recommend to do that through a process of ongoing reflection, where you are thinking about your own approach, continually evolving it, making some, kind of self-coaching interventions for yourself, so that you start to improve and see that as an ongoing process for your own development and progress for your business. And ultimately, we need customers that know us, like us, and trust us, but we have to take them through this kind of more comprehensive journey, especially in a B2B environment, because we don't want people who just buy once. We want people that commit and are loyal to us for long term. And I also think about the title of the book was no accident. So it's Master the Psychology, Skills and Systems of the World's Best Sales Teams. I think about those three as building blocks, okay? So the foundation for sales success, we have to have the right psychology and mindset. We have to prime ourselves on a regular basis. We have to know the techniques that we need to keep reframing situations, to keep ourselves positive, engaged, motivated. Then we need to build the right skills, very often communication skills, questioning, listening, being able to position and join the dots up for customers based on what they've told us, being able to flex and adapt as we need to, being able to cultivate periods of silence when we really want to keep talking, but we know it lets the customer think or commit, right? And then we have to systemize. So what we're talking about now is how we systemize. What are the stages of the process? How do we go through them so that we create a system that over time delivers the results we're looking for much more consistently. And it's interesting when we talk about kind of engaging customers, there's some interesting sales statistics. I'm sure you might have seen a slide like this before, but it's interesting. 48% of salespeople don't follow up with a prospect, 25% make a second contact and stop, 12 make 3 contacts and stop, only 10% of salespeople make more than 3. Okay, 2% of sales are made on the first contact, 3% on the second contact, 5% on third contact, 10% on fourth contact, 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. And that's the reason we keep persevering and following up with people. It's so important. And when you know that they're the stats, gives you the confidence to keep going. The amount of times over the years I've had customers say to me, the reason we deal with you is because you were so damn, you persevered so hard at the start. We didn't think you were ever going to go away. And that's a big part of what convinces and converts a customer over time, because they'll be going through their own challenges. And if you keep persevering, eventually they're like, we should give this person a chance. And it does work. Following the right process is equally important. Right? Don't just keep pitching the same stuff at the wall, right? And we know that, interestingly, since the pandemic, customers have become more difficult to reach. One, because a lot of them are working remotely. So we're remote, they're remote, getting hold of them is really difficult. We know that also, a lot of people have got more on their plate. So, when they introduced email and the internet, everyone was like, oh, this is going to be great. You'll have much more time. It'll be so much more effective to contact people. It never worked out that way, right? We've got more noise coming at us now than ever before. So we know that the world's changing. We have to think about how do we change our approach to align with it. And I'll share this. We use this toolkit in our programs. It's really useful. It helps you build a really solid sales plan. I won't go through that now, but it's a really nice, useful kind of set of documents and assets. But we use a couple of models, and I talked about those models at the start. The first one is, how do we prepare for success? And I'll share this with you as a framework because this is useful. We think about this as you'll all be familiar with SWOT analyses. statement of word, with the SWOT analysis, right? We think about this as a sales SWOT analysis. So we think about 4 boxes. On the x-axis, we think about the customer first, then we think about us and our business. On the y-axis, we think about what's going on internally in their organization and what's going on externally for them and our organization. And then we build out a plan that looks like this, with details about the customer and what's happening in their organization. And then the market as the customer sees it. So not the market as we see it, the market as the customer sees it. And that's really important. It's a really important distinction, because that starts to change your lens of how you position things with the customer. Then you start to think about how you manage yourself going into those interactions. And then finally, we think about the external market as we see it, and in particular, what it is that other customers feedback to us about the impact of the work we do. And that starts to create some confidence for us and validation for other customers. That's really important, because then they see it as external market data rather than us saying this is how we operate or this is how good we are. And that's so important as a distinction. And our Inspire sales process, so we start with a plan. Our Inspire sales process is prepare at the front end, right? Build some form of plan, just have a strategy that you're working towards. Then think about how you connect with customers, have an approach to connecting with people that works over and over again. And we talk about how to establish rapport, deepen relationships, build trust, and strengthen, especially long-term partnerships. Then we start with insight. So a lot of that comes from the plan. So a lot of those insights we develop come from the plan. Then we think about needs discovery and how we ask great questions, how we tune in to listen, how we then summarize to a customer so that they can really understand their own thinking and we become the guide for their thinking. Then we have a solutions discussion and we join up the dots between what we offer and what they need. Then we make proposals and we get agreement on those proposals because we've lined up the whole system. If at any point we make a proposal, it doesn't land with a customer, we just go back and say, okay, no problem, I've probably not fully understood your needs. Can you tell me what else is important? And they tell you what else is important. So we just follow the process forwards and backwards until the proposal lands. Then we make sure that we've got some immediacy at the end of the call. And then we reflect and improve. And it becomes a cycle of ongoing continuous improvement and elevation for us and for our business. And the thing is about having a cycle and a structure is that when you apply that to your regular approach to customers, you start to build confidence, because you're not thinking about what you need to do next. You're following the steps, and the structure gives you confidence. So we talked about psychology, skills, and systems. The 3 of them build confidence over time. So one of the things that you can do to build your confidence is map out your process, give yourself the structure, and it will just increase your confidence. And especially when you start to see the results improve and you get higher engagement. But in terms of, so to confidence is something that we can develop. There's also some psychological tools that you can use, some kind of almost ways to impact yourself. But then we think about how do we connect with customers? There's so much noise going on for customers. So how do we engage customers more effectively? And we teach these 3 principles that I'll share with you today that we find really useful. It's a good refresher for us, actually, Teresa, today. So 3 principles to engage your customer. And the first is to not think just customer first, but in those early messages to think customer only. So we've got a plan, we know about the customer, we know about their external market, we know about our external validation. So to use language that only talks to the customer, about the customer. So instead of early pitching us and pitching what we do and pitching our business, park all of that, just use language that's about the customer. And when you do that, that really does change the dynamic, because at some point you're going to talk about your business, right? But it should not be in these early interactions, because early interactions, they're not interested. They're just interested in themselves. So we just talk about them and them only in those early conversations. The second principle then is to think, rather than talking about what they do or what we do, but to talk about outcomes that they will be aspiring to achieve. So what are the outcomes they're looking to get from a conversation with us? Long term, think long term, and that really helps you. So we go language that's customer only, outcome not what we do. And then the third principle is what we call the power of peer reference. So the power of someone else talking about you rather than being you. And when you do this, basically we're talking about other customers that get value from the work we do, tangible value. And when you say to another customer, other customers, or this customer specifically talks about this outcome, right? Then you start to create external validation and authority, even though it's you saying it. So using other customers rather than yourself is really valuable. And then three things happen. The customer gets curious because they're curious to see if they can get the same result. The second is that they get reassured. If you're doing it for someone else, then you are likely to be able to do it for me and get the same result for me, or the same outcome for me. And then thirdly, over time, they start to think, actually, I should probably act on this, because if I don't and other people that are in similar markets to me are doing this, then I could start to lose out, and this fear of missing out sets in. So we start to share some motivation that gets the customer kind of almost inspiring themselves to move through the process. That's the idea here. This is these early stages. So three principles, and it's worth going back through some of your messaging, maybe outreach emails, maybe outreach calls that you're making, and just sense check three things. Are you talking customer only? Are you talking about outcomes, not what you do? So the outcome of what you do could be 6 to 12 months from here. Might not be now, might be 6 to 12 months out. And are you referencing sufficiently other customers that have had a great experience with you and the outcomes that those other customers have been able to achieve? And that's the key, right? That is the key to really compelling messaging in the first instance. The other thing that I think is useful to keep in mind is when you think about customers being really busy, this thought about why should the customer trade their time for time with me? Because ultimately, they're busy. They can only do one thing at a time. There's always too much to do. You never get through your to-do list. So if somebody says, yes, I'll spend some time with you, Justin, they're trading time they could be doing something else for time with me. A bit like you on this webinar, right? There's lots of other things you could be doing. You've chosen to create time with me now. So for me, it's about, right, how much value can I deliver for you because of that investment you've made? And if we think about it like that from a sales perspective, it just helps us to become much more compelling and much more customer centric, and recognizing that the customer must think, in order to spend time with us, the customer must think, this is so important, I must see Charlie, or I must see Emma, or I must see Teresa. And that question, what will make the customer think that, can be really powerful, because it gets you just reorientate your thinking and your approach to be much more customer centric. So that's kind of how we build confidence. There's some, we won't go through the mindset principles. There are a number of mindset principles, but structure, the approach we take builds confidence. The model builds confidence. You think about outreach and how we get customers to engage. Think about those three key principles. Refining and tweaking our messaging to align with the three principles really helps us with early customer engagement. And then the final thing we'll talk about today is we're going through the sales process rapidly. This immediate action, which is how do we maintain client momentum, and recognizing that enthusiasm has a half-life. Someone says to you in a meeting, I'm really keen, I love the idea of that. Yep, send me a proposal and I'll have a look at it, and then we'll catch up. The challenge is that if we don't really think about this final stage, keep the energy high, keep the customer engaged, then we can lose their momentum. And here's what I recommend. I recommend that at the final stage of a conversation with a customer, you do a quick summary. And that summary includes the actions that you'll take to progress, whether it's the order, a contract, a program, a proposal, whatever it is. So you're just really clear. So what I'll do is, and you just list out the actions that you've captured during the meeting. And then you say, and when I'll do those by are these dates or times, right? So timing of those actions. And then the next thing we do is you just say, so, and what I noted down was that you were going to do, and you list the client's actions, right? And you link those to yours. So I'm going to send you a proposal by, 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, or by 9 o'clock Monday morning. So when will you have a chance to review that and respond? Get the customer to tell you. And when they tell you, there's something that happens in the mind. When I speak something, I start to visualize it. I start to commit myself. So when the customer says, well, so I might need a couple of days because I've got some other things going on. Okay, so Tuesday would be okay with it? And they say, yeah, Tuesday should be okay. Brilliant. So what time by Tuesday do you think you'll be ready to come back to me? And they'll tell you, right? And you say, okay, that's brilliant. Thanks so much. That's great. And then, so beyond that, when should we check in again? And they might say, well, can we do Wednesday morning? So then you say, yeah, great. So you'll review it Tuesday, come back to me, and then we can regroup Wednesday, quick check, make sure that everything's in order, and work out next steps from there. Does that sound okay? Yeah, great. Brilliant. And you want to get to the point where the steps are mapped until you and the customer have agreed when you will next talk, and then you schedule it there and then. Open up your calendar, put a diary marker in, put their name in it, send them the invitation. Say, brilliant, I've sent you a diary marker so that, because if you're anything like me, I live and die by my diary. If it's not in there, I forget. And they'll say the same. They'll say, yeah, that's great. So you just date and time for the follow-up discussion. That is so important. When I learned that principle many years ago, the change it made to my sales progression was huge. And remembering to do it every time actually, it's really easy to forget, because you get to the end of a meeting, especially if it's been positive, and you're like, yes, and you're like, yeah, brilliant, I'll send you something, we'll see you again at some point. Right? So being able to remind ourselves, last thing we do, I'll send you the proposal. When we have a chance to review it, they tell you, okay, great, brilliant. And so you'll respond on that date. Yeah, great. Okay, so once you've responded, when should we regroup? They'll tell you, brilliant. Should we schedule it now for convenience? Yeah, great, schedule it. Do it there and then. It's honestly, it's such a great cycle. It just shortens and compresses your timelines on sales cycle. It can really help. So that is about how we maintain momentum at the end of each call. And to do it at a point when the customer's energy is high, when they're feeling enthusiastic, it's such a perfect time, because they're ready to commit. And actually then you create this association with the next meeting that was linked to that previous feeling of positivity. So you actually join up from a psychological perspective, you join up the positivity for the customer as well. And I use this analogy about the sales process. If you think about the sales process, you've got you on one side, you've got the customer on the other. They're like two seats in the car, right? But there's only one steering wheel in the car. So if at any point we don't keep our hands on the wheel, we don't have that next appointment in the diary, we've lost control of the sales process, right? We've just handed the wheel to the customer and said, you drive. It's fine. We'll go wherever you want, at whatever speed you want to pull into Starbucks for a couple of hours. Just go ahead, fill your boots, right? So we have to maintain that sense of momentum and control. Otherwise, we start to move at the customer's pace, and the customer's pace is never going to be at the same pace as we want. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah, useful reminder, useful kind of analogy. And then we think about this, like I like this analogy of, I like analogies generally, right? But if you think about putting in place the right structure and systems in your business, you think about using the right sales process, getting an approach that you know works. If you're using an approach that's much more effective and you can see the results, it's like jumping on a bike, right? All of a sudden you can move at a much faster pace. If you're still doing things that you're a little unsure about, you're just chasing customers, chasing opportunities. It is this analogy between, it doesn't matter how hard you run, you're never going to keep up with the person that's on the bike. They will not only outpace you, but it'll be a lot easier for them, and they'll just have a much smoother ride. So actually thinking about the structure you put in place, the sales stages, engaging customers, making sure you maintain that momentum. It's all about keeping the cycle and the ease at which you sell much more effective for you and your business. Okay, I'm going to give you a moment just to reflect on key takeaways and key actions. I can see you making a few notes. Just give you a moment to reflect on key actions and takeaways. Emma, I'm going to answer your question at the same time as well. So, how do you prevent somebody from using your proposal as a whipping stick for your competition? Here's what I recommend. So first is, when you're at the needs discovery stage of your conversation with your customer, asking them questions about their motivation to change. So they're going to say, well, there's a good deal, or your admin fees are lower. Great. Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely make some savings. What else is important for you as you consider this change, as well as the savings? What are the challenges with your current provider? What aren't you getting that you wish you were getting today? Because it's never just about price. Never just about price, right? So they're going to say, well, we never see them. There's low representation. Even when we have problems, they don't respond. Their customer service team don't respond to our emails, or whatever it is, right? Make a note and turn up the pain. So you say, wow, that sounds terrible. What impact does that have on your team then? What impact is that having on your practice and your business? And they'll tell you, right? So you go, okay, so that, oh, wow. So, right, so sometimes you have downtime, sometimes you're not able to process payments, whatever it is, right? You don't have visibility of data. Oh, okay, so you've got no reporting, whatever, write it all down. And then when you're summarizing them, so one of the reasons we're doing this is because it's absolutely going to unlock some savings, but also there were some real priorities for you in terms of getting better support, getting better visibility of reporting, getting more responsiveness to any challenge. So this is important, this is important, this is important, and get the customer to agree, yes, these are all the reasons we're changing, right? Then, as you start to talk about the solution, what I've done, which has been really successful in the past, is say, so as we think about the proposal, which I'm going to send you, and we'll talk about that next, one of the things to be aware of, a lot of our customers have experienced that when they go back to their provider and tell them they're looking to change, the provider says, I'll match the price. But what they will never do is fix all of these other issues that you said you had, because they can't. And be open about it. So in that situation, I'm interested, what do you think you'll do? Because the customer will then say, so all of a sudden they've visualized it, right? And they'll go, well, no, you're right, Emma, there's all these other problems. No, even if they match it, we're still moving. And you want to get them to say that out loud so that when they then notify their provider they're moving, the proposal's in, you're moving forward, and the provider says, I'll match the price. It's not like the first time the customer's heard it and they don't go, oh, okay, we'll stay. They go, yeah, I thought you'd say that. But there's all these other problems we've got that we can't resolve with you. And you need the customer to be really clear on all of the other motivations to change as well as price. Yeah. And when they're clear on it and they can explain it to that incumbent supplier, it's not you having to do it, but the questions you've asked and the way you structured the conversation has armed them to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I know this is a really awful question, but can I just ask you one, Justin?
Please,
when you say, like, because that perfect example of like saying, what other challenges perhaps maybe do you have with the current provider? Because like you say, you want to sort of unearth and dig out more information.
Yeah.
What if that customer says, oh no, I'm happy with them, I'm just looking to save money?
Yeah, so I would say, oh, that's interesting. So if there was one thing apart from money, if there was just one other thing that you're looking to change as part of the change of provider, what would it be?
Oh, okay, that's lovely.
Because there will be something, won't there?
There'll always be something.
Always, it's not always just about the money, is it?
No. So don't take no for an answer. Emma, just acknowledge it. Okay, that's interesting. And then there's that question, if there was one thing, gets them to focus on one thing. And you'll be really surprised when they tell you the one thing, whatever that is, they will then think of a second thing. Because that's how the mind works, right? The mind connects dots. So when they say, oh yeah, actually this is one thing we need to consider, and then you go, okay, great. So, and just explore that a bit. So tell me a bit more about that. They'll tell you. I go, okay, great. And then write it down. And you go, anything else? And they'll go, well, actually, there's this other thing they do that really pisses me off.
Well.
It's really effective.
Tell me more. What else?
Yes. Tell me more.
Tell me more.
What other impact does that have? So you've got loads of ways that you can explore that, and you really want to open it up. But the idea here is that you're priming the customer to handle their own objection when it comes up. And that completely changes the game on it. And you will have customers come back to you and say, you were right, Emma. They did try and counter offer me, but I told them what we discussed. and it will completely change everything.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure. And Charlie, your piece about identifying the decision makers, for me, that's quite early in the process. Qualifying questions. So as you're engaging that potential customer, you think about the strength of your value proposition. It's those three kind of key principles. So it's customer only, it's outcome focused, and you're referencing other customers like them. When they're saying, yeah, that's interesting, let's have a meeting, the question to them is, or you then just go back and say, yeah, absolutely, let's have a meeting. Can I just check, in terms of people who are attending the meeting, is there anyone else that could be valuable in the decision-making process that we should invite? So you just ask them, right? Ask them.
Yeah.
Charlie, are you telephone or face-to-face or both, or?
Everything. So I prefer face to face. I've done a lot more face to face, but obviously there has to be that online interaction free face to face. So I suppose it's a bit of both. We do have the odd client that doesn't want to meet at all as well, but I do like to meet people face to face if I can.
Yeah, it's good. And I have clients, Charlie, that through the pandemic, I've never actually met them face to face. And it's only this year when I've actually met some of my clients face to face. It's strange, but it's just as effective a medium. If you can do it online, it's just as effective as being in person if you can get it right. Yeah. Very good. Okay, good.
Thank you.
So I'll get you to think about your key takeaways. In our last couple of minutes, I think you'll know this already, but we've got these Inspire Sales Academies. I think that's probably the reason you're on the line today. We are, I know, Charlie, you can't make the date, unfortunately, which is a real shame, but March 17th and 18th, we've got this 2-day academy. We start the process by asking you to take our Sales Acceleration Scorecard. So it gives you personal development reports and recommendations around your kind of development areas and key areas for focus on your sales process. It's really useful diagnostic. We then do our 2-day training and coaching workshops, and we look to assign you an accountability partner, so someone else that you can work with throughout the 2 days. That can be, just someone that you can sense check ideas with and talk to about their business and yours. Obviously, copies of our Inspire Influence Sell book, and there's an online program that we give you access to as well that's like video based. And then we have the toolkit that I shared with you for implementation and capturing your actions and mapping kind of the changes and progress that you want to make. And then we've got this follow-up coaching web class that we'll do about 3 weeks out, that just gives you some support beyond the initial sessions, so that you get an opportunity to reconnect with the group, and you've got an opportunity to kind of share what progress you've made and where you might still need a bit of guidance or support. And then we'll long-term, we're thinking long-term kind of mastermind coaching groups and leadership development and all sorts of different programs that we'll run. But so in our masterminds, we really kind of think about developing this confidentiality, build a community, collaboration across different businesses, bit of fun along the way, bit of camaraderie, and hopefully a bit of challenge, because some of these things will challenge us as we work through the process, but that's a good thing, right? So you've got support for the challenge. So Sales Acceleration Scorecard, I'll put this in the email to you as a follow-up from today. So you've got access to the scorecard. That's free. So just take 50, takes about, the average time is about 11.5 minutes, but it takes somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes to complete it. And it will really give you this opportunity to start your journey with us. We have an online program. The link is in here, so you can preview the online programs as well. And you can, if you wanted to buy a copy of the Amazon have the Inspire Influence Sell on there. So if you want to buy a copy, there's a link there. It's a really nice format, actually, the book. So that's what it looked. 2 days. The next one is 2-day workshop at Y Boston Lakes, plus the group coaching session as a follow-up. We're limited to 18 places, but it's Friday and the Saturday, the 18th of March. If Charlie, I know it's not for you for dates, but if you know anybody that you could that you think might be useful for it, or that could you pass it on, please feel free. We've got the last few remaining spaces. That's why we're doing the promotional offer on it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. And then final couple of things. So we're on this mission in focused growth. We're really fortunate. We've got a lot of business experience inside and outside of different marketplaces, different size companies. And we're really trying to distill kind of the best practice in sales and business development, and really trying to help our clients become market leaders. That's the big thing for us. How do we help clients become market leaders? And one of the ways in which we do it as a team, one of the things that we find really valuable is our kind of values that we focus on. So we've got these 5 values. I won't go through them all, but the big one for us is being a force for good in the community. We talk about, I don't know if any of you have heard about the United Nations Global Goals, but these are 17 goals developed by different business leaders and world leaders to help improve life on Earth. And what they say is pick a goal that is particularly poignant for you and meaningful for you, and become an advocate for it. So we've picked goal 8, decent work and economic growth. And we're also members of the 1% Pledge, which is a way that we pledge kind of 1% of resources and time to worthwhile causes. And we really think we can impact goal number 8 as well. And you, Charlie, you'll know this because you're local to me as well, but I do it personally through this Walk and Talk for Men group, where we bring communities of men together and help them with, support for their mental health and well-being. And in our local town, it's kind of almost caught a light. It's gained a bit of momentum of its own. We've got 5 different walk leaders running walks for us. We've got a walk happens most weekends. In fact, every Saturday there's a walk, and every second Sunday there's also a walk. So we're doing about 6 walks a month. And it really has become like part of the fabric of the St Neots and Cambridgeshire community. So it's been really rewarding for me personally. I share it just as a kind of, because it helps you to think, actually, is there something I could do in my own business that's relative for me, that might help us to make, perhaps a bigger impact in the world, if that's what you'd like to do. So, right, that concludes the webinar for today, the workshop. Thanks so much for joining me. Any final questions before we finish for today?
No, but I think that's very helpful, Justin. I've certainly picked, quite a lot of sort of tips and ideas going forward.
Excellent.
Because you do sometimes forget things, don't you? Like you say, doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. And it's funny actually, because only this morning, because I've been looking at some of my leads, thinking I've emailed and emailed and emailed, and they're just not coming back to me. And it's, yes, there's persistence, but there's also that element of, you don't want to become a pain in their backside that they, think, I wish you would, just get on her bike.
Disappear.
Disappear. Yeah, wish that one would disappear. So, perhaps maybe on my emails, I do need to change the approach.
Yeah. And
I do need to put a little bit more, something different in the content.
Yeah. And think about those 3 principles, Emma.
Yeah.
Because they'll really help. They'll really help. And the just final thing, the thing I've found works really well is either a WhatsApp voice note.
Right.
Because then it's more personal.
Yeah.
So a quick voice note to say hi. I've probably sent 15 today, right? And then what I do for larger clients, I'll record a short video, and that's not to everyone's taste, right? So not everybody likes to record video, but I find when I record a video, I get a probably 50% response rate. It ups from people who have ignored me. It's like they can't. It's not that they can't resist it, right? But it's like they find it hard to ignore a video. Geez, this guy's gone to all the effort to record a video and send it to me. I should respond. It's really interesting. So little things like that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Justin, how do you record those videos?
Got an iPhone 13 Pro.
Right. Do you use like a certain app, or you just literally record a video of yourself and you upload it on an email?
I literally record it as a video and then stick it on a WhatsApp message and send it.
Right. Okay.
WhatsApp it. Yeah. So I literally record it. Make sure I haven't made any bloopers. Sometimes I get a first take. Sometimes I have to cut out the F word, and then and then I just send it on a WhatsApp note or a WhatsApp message, and really high response rate to video. It's quite remarkable. Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting.
I need to practice.
Yeah. Well, you've got your banner, Teresa.
Voice notes I'm fine on, videos I'm not so good.
Yeah, but then I have to make an effort every day with my hair and makeup. I mean, some days I'm working from home. Do you know what I mean? Like the neighbour probably thinks he lives next to someone that's on a council estate, Justin. Do you know what I mean? So it's not a good look. I don't think I'd get any positive responses. In fact, my manager might give me my P45.
You know what you have to do, Emma? Create a filming day. This is the day when I do myself up and I do all my filming from the videos from the customers. Yeah,
No, that's
genuinely,
that's a good idea, though.
Voice notes and short videos, really try and keep them under a minute if you can. That's the plan. Okay, Charlie, Emma,
Awesome.
Teresa, out. Lovely to see you. Thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
I'll see you later.
Speak to you later.
Good to see you.
Bye.
See you later.
Okay, see you. Bye.